Classic Plus, Project Camelot, Vanilla Continued, whatever they end up calling the next iteration of Classic WoW, which we are all hoping we're gonna see on this year's BlizzCon. I have a couple of new leaks that I want to discuss for you today, because some of them actually have some pretty decent credibility. The World of Warcraft Classic Plus will stay on Azeroth, and it will add long cut races like the Nagas, keeping vanilla talents and emphasizing slower and meaningful progression over just rushing to 60 and clearing Molten Core, for example. According to the leak, often referred to as the Fisher King information, Classic Plus remains firmly set in the original Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor. There are no new continents or major landmasses. They'll stay in the classical style. The game does not introduce the kind of systems we have seen in Season of Discovery, such as the rune system. Instead, new abilities would come through more traditional means such as quest or class trainers. One of the more striking claims involve playable races that never made it into the original game. The Nagas are specifically highlighted. Chris Metzen has long described them as a favorite race that was cut due to technical limitations around animation and armor in the mid-2000s. As we know, modern technology of course removes many of the old constraints that prevented those options in 2004, making their inclusion more practical than it used to be. The league promises return to Horde versus Alliant tensity across Azeroth, and the possibility of locking paladins to the Alliance and shamans to the Horde, reflecting an older design direction. World buffs would remain part of the game but become less exclusive. Repeatable methods for obtaining key buffs, including an Alliance equivalent to the Horde's Ren buff, are described as a part of the plan. The main piece of this leak is the so-called progression philosophy, which sits at the center of the reported vision. Players would not be expected to raise to level 60 and immediately enter Molten Core. The design would place greater value on the leveling journey itself, interactions with other players, faction-oriented goals and guild objectives. Set bonuses would play a larger role in defining class identity and power they did in the original game. This approach actually closely matches comments made by Mark Kern, also known as Grumps, who served as a lead designer on the original World of Warcraft game. Kern has repeatedly argued that any evolution of Classic should begin by clearly defining the design pillars that made the 2004 game distinct, ensuring that every change respects those founding pillars. The goal, in his words, is an alternate timeline in which the game never drifted into the systems and pacing of current retail World of Warcraft, which means, for example, we would never actually cross the Dark Portal in Blasted Lands and enter into Outland. The entirety of Classic Plus would play out on Azeroth. It does not describe a game full of new zones on the scale of later expansions and radical class overhauls. Instead, it focuses on selective additions that could have existed in the original development period, paired with systems that reward living in the world rather than optimizing past it. Whether this specific vision matches what Blizzard is actually building is still unknown. Leaks of this type have varying accuracy and Blizzard has not commented. What the discussion does reveal is a clear divide in what different parts of Classic audience wants. Some players seek substantial new raids, zones and quality of life modernization. Others want a careful extension of the 2004 experience that preserves its slower pace, higher friction and sense of discovery. I personally agree with Grumps, where he mentioned that the founding pillars of 2004's version of World of Warcraft must be respected. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to add onto those pillars and strengthen them with other things. If you guys remember, a long time ago when the box art of Vanilla World of Warcraft all the way back in 2004 started showing, we could see classes like the Demon Hunter. It could be that perhaps Chris Metzen also wanted to have Demon Hunters in the game along with the Nagas, which actually makes sense if you know a little bit about Demon Hunter and Naga lore, particularly Illidan and the Nagas in Warcraft 3 and the Burning Crusade, of course. They have been kinda intertwined for a long time. So for me personally, it would make sense that the Demon Hunter class, of course, kinda, adjusted for Classic, comes together with the Nagas. I personally would love to have at least 2 new classes in Classic style in World of Warcraft Classic Plus, and those would, in my opinion, have to be the Demon Hunter and the Death Knight. But they don't have to be DK and Demon Hunter from retail World of Warcraft. We can have Demon Hunter from Warcraft 3. If you play the game, you will know that Illidan, you play mostly as Illidan there, has his own kit, which transforms the hypermobile Havoc Demon Hunter into more of a range spellcaster during its metamorphosis, having defensives like Evasion, which is similar to the old Blur from Havoc Demon Hunter during Legion, and Immolation, while having caster disrupting abilities like the Mana Burn. Should they maybe look into the Warcraft 3 version of Illidan and somehow make a Demon Hunter from that? I don't know. The same could be said about DKs from Warcraft 3. Maybe they could combine some of the DK abilities and talents from the items in Warcraft 3 and somehow incorporate them into the Wrath of the Lich King version of Death Knight, which would be, of course, the original vision in World of Warcraft for that class. But in my opinion, adding a couple of things from Warcraft 3 to DK from Rat just to spice up the talents a little bit wouldn't be such a bad idea, and we would still be respecting the foundation pillars of 2004 version of the game. One thing Grumps hasn't mentioned, which I want to mention, is that while we have these founding pillars of Vanilla WoW, the actual founding pillars of the entire franchise come from Warcraft 1, 2, and specifically Warcraft 3, and then of course the excellent Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne, which sets up the lore for Vanilla WoW, the Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King. So if we were to take a little bit abilities and item effects from that game and put them into Classic Plus, at least as a test, I believe this would be a decent thing for the game. I also agree that the runes from Seasonal Discovery probably wouldn't fit in Classic Plus. I personally haven't played Seasonal Discovery Phase 1, but I have played the recent Phase 4 revival that all the streamers had a couple of months ago. And when I spawned on my Elemental Shaman in the Barrens and bought all my runes and I just started one-shooting everything with Lava Burst and max level Chain Lightning, I also had some spawnable dogs, I actually felt disgusting. Like I played on some overtuned private server and not on a brand new experience created by the current Classic WoW developers. These are of course just my opinions. How do you feel about Classic Plus? Would you want to respect the founding pillars, as Grumps called them, of 2004 version of Vanilla WoW and just adding some things maybe from Warcraft 3, 2, and 1? Or would you want to have the more modern look into Classic via Seasonal Discovery and maybe even retail? Let me know down in the comment section. Also, if you're new here and you start for some WoW content, I stream World of Warcraft every single day on this YouTube channel and on my Twitch, and I will leave the link to all of those platforms in this video's description. Thank you so much for watching. This is Ace signing out. Have a good evening. Peace.